I'm still reeling from what unfolded last weekend. I find myself constantly replaying it, questioning if it was all some bizarre dream. But no, the maxed out balance on my credit card and the remnants of melted ice cream on my sofa confirm it was all too real. My boyfriend, Ryan, humiliated me in front of his colleagues and ended our relationship at a restaurant, leaving me to cover the dinner expenses. As he departed, he declared loudly that someone like me should be thankful he even considered dating me. I maintained my composure, offering a smile as I calmly waited. This morning, my phone was flooded, showing 13 missed calls. To provide some background, Ryan and I had been together for 2 years. This wasn't a brief, casual encounter. We had established routines. We enjoyed Netflix Sundays, endured uncomfortable holiday gatherings with our families, and even attended a couples yoga class he suggested, which frankly, we both struggled with. Things weren't flawless, but I believed we were stable. We'd even discussed the possibility of cohabitating this summer. He did have some irritating quirks, like leaving his hosiery everywhere, using his phone during movies, and offering constructive feedback on my appearance, such as, "That top doesn't flatter your arms," or "Have you considered a different haircut?" I naively dismissed these as his way of being honest. Past me was so trusting. So, last Friday, Ryan messaged me about a dinner with some work associates. He'd rarely included me in his professional circle, claiming it was inappropriate, so I was genuinely enthusiastic. I even purchased a new outfit, rest in peace my budget, and dedicated considerable time to getting ready. I'm talking about a full YouTube guided makeup application, the high-end straightener I reserve for special events, the whole 9 yards. I arrive at this incredibly posh downtown restaurant, the type with minuscule servings and no visible prices. First warning sign. Ryan is already there with two of his colleagues, Leonard and Pablo. The instant I approach, there's an odd atmosphere. Ryan hardly notices me, just offering a half-hearted rise from his seat and a curt, "You're late." I was a mere 2 minutes late due to the parking nightmare. I take a seat and he comments on my attire, stating, "Oh, you chose to wear that?" Not discreetly either. His friends exchange a glance, and I instantly feel my cheeks flush. For the record, I had on a navy blue dress that I believed looked quite presentable, nothing outlandish or unsuitable. I attempt to make light of it, joking, "Was there a dress code I overlooked?" But he simply shrugs and mentions they've already placed an appetizer order. Great. The subsequent hour consists primarily of Ryan discussing work matters I don't comprehend, while his companions nod in agreement. Whenever I attempt to participate in the conversation, Ryan either interrupts or explains why my point is incorrect. At one juncture, I mention a customer at my workplace, and Ryan interjects with, "She doesn't really grasp how things operate in the real business world," accompanied by a dismissive gesture, as if retail isn't a legitimate profession. I've been a manager for 3 years. I'm sitting there, increasingly uneasy, pondering whether Ryan has always been this patronizing and I simply failed to notice, or if he's performing for his friends. Either way, it's not a good impression. Then Leonard inquires about how we met, and I begin recounting the story of how his coworker, Vanessa, who is my best friend, introduced us. Ryan cuts me off mid-narrative and says, "Yeah, Vanessa felt sorry for her. I was doing a favor, really." Followed by a laugh. Guys, my stomach literally plummeted. That's not even remotely accurate. Vanessa had actually cautioned me about Ryan's inflated ego before arranging our meeting, but assured me he was a decent person underneath it all. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. I excuse myself to the restroom, primarily to avoid crying in front of them. I'm in the stall, messaging Vanessa, like, "WTF is going on?" When I receive a notification that Ryan just tagged himself at this restaurant on Instagram with Boys Night Out, as if I'm not even present. Vanessa calls me immediately, but I sent her to voicemail because I don't want the others to overhear me crying. I dab some water on my face, touch up my makeup, and deliver myself this pathetic little pep talk in the mirror about enduring dinner with grace. When I return to the table, they're all chuckling about something, but abruptly cease when I sit down. Fantastic. The waiter delivers our main courses, and Ryan continues making these jokes about my food selection. I ordered pasta, one of the more budget-friendly options since I was already apprehensive about the bill. And he keeps saying things like, carb loading for a marathon? And that's an interesting choice for someone with your physique. Each remark feels like a tiny laceration, and they're accumulating rapidly. At this juncture, I'm hardly consuming anything, merely rearranging the food on my plate and anticipating the moment I can depart. Then Pablo inquires about some presentation, and Ryan embarks on this elaborate narrative about how his supervisor adored his concepts and he's essentially managing the entire project now. Something clicks in my mind. The preceding week, Ryan had been expressing anxiety about this very presentation, stating his segment was only 5 minutes long and he was apprehensive. Now, suddenly, he's the central figure. It's as if he's residing in some parallel reality where he's the protagonist. Then the bill arrives. The waiter places it on the table, and Ryan retrieves it, examines it briefly, then slides it toward me. I initially assume he's simply showing me the total, but then he utters words I'll never forget. You know what? I don't think this is working. I gaze at him, awaiting the punchline. There isn't one. I've been attempting to make this function, but I'm simply not drawn to you any longer. I believe we should terminate our relationship. In the midst of a restaurant, in the presence of his friends, after 2 years together. Who behaves in such a manner? I'm completely taken aback. Are you genuine right now? This is how you wish to proceed? He rises, grabs his jacket, and states, I still experience a knot in my stomach recalling it. A person like you should be grateful I even considered dating you for this duration. You're not precisely a catch. Then he and his associates simply departed. They all exited together, laughing, leaving me seated there with a $347 invoice for all their extravagant Wagyu appetizers and premium cocktails. The waiter approached with an expression of commiseration that exacerbated everything exponentially. I settled the bill with my credit card, which I'm still paying off from Christmas, joy, and somehow managed to reach my car without completely disintegrating. I contacted Vanessa from the parking area, sobbing so intensely she couldn't comprehend me initially. She came directly to my apartment with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a bottle of wine, the true MVP. Between bouts of unattractive crying and stress-eating cookie dough, I recounted everything. She was furious. I had to dissuade her from driving to Ryan's residence and creating a disturbance. That's when she became inquisitive. She kept posing questions about what Ryan had mentioned regarding work, the project he referenced, his position within the company. Finally, she said, Sabrina, I'm unsure how to convey this, but Ryan isn't who he claims to be at his workplace. It transpires that Ryan isn't some high-flying marketing executive on the verge of promotion. He's an assistant who performs coffee runs and schedules meetings. All those business trips? Complete fabrications. The significant presentation? He was merely managing the slides for the actual team. The impressive title on his LinkedIn? Utter fiction. I felt like an utter fool. For 2 years, this individual had been deceiving me about virtually everything, and I never questioned it. What else had he been misleading me about? That night after Vanessa departed, I entered full-fledged detective mode. I scrolled through our past text exchanges, our photographs, everything. So many inconsistencies I'd overlooked. Remarks about finances that didn't align. Instances when he claimed to be working late, but his location indicated he was elsewhere. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment in the restaurant, how insignificant he made me feel, how mortified I was. At approximately 3 a.m., I receive a text from an unfamiliar number. Hey, it's Cody from Ryan's office. Vanessa provided me with your number. There are some things you ought to be aware of. That's when things became truly intriguing. First update. Firstly, I extend my sincere gratitude to everyone for the encouraging remarks on my previous post. I genuinely shed tears, of a positive nature, reading some of them. Numerous individuals requested an update, so here's what transpired next in this utterly bizarre circumstance. So, after discovering from Cody, who collaborates with Ryan, That my boyfriend of 2 years had essentially been inhabiting a fantasy realm of his own making, I spent the subsequent days in that unpleasant post breakup haze. You know, the one where you alternate between weeping into a pint of ice cream and furiously perusing old photographs, questioning if any of it was genuine. My apartment resembled a disaster zone. Dishes accumulated, laundry strewn everywhere, and approximately 7 empty DoorDash bags because cooking felt insurmountable. The most challenging aspect was that I kept experiencing these moments where I'd conceive of something amusing to text Ryan, then recall what occurred, and it was like experiencing the breakup anew. My mind was literally trapped in a cycle of, did that truly transpire? And how did I fail to perceive this? I'd also been abstaining from social media because I just knew Ryan would post something irritating. But Wednesday morning, I finally succumbed and examined Instagram. Sure enough, there was Ryan with a gym selfie, captioned "Level Up, Know Your Worth." The sheer gall. I nearly hurled my phone across the room. Vanessa arrived that evening with takeout and discovered me enveloped in my comforter like a dejected burrito. She's been incredible throughout this entire ordeal, ensuring I consume actual sustenance, listening to me rant about the same topics repeatedly, and never once uttering, "I informed you so," even though she harbored suspicions about Ryan from the outset. While we were dining, Vanessa displayed her text exchanges with Cody. Apparently, they'd been communicating extensively, and he had some gossip to divulge. According to Cody, Ryan had been informing everyone at work that he terminated our relationship because I was excessively dependent and constantly discussing marriage. What? I was not the one who created a Pinterest board titled Future Home Ideas. Yes, Ryan actually possessed one of these, which he claimed was research for some work project. Then Cody revealed the true shocker. Ryan wasn't merely deceiving others about his job title. He was currently on probation for claiming credit for others' work and might actually be terminated soon. All those late nights working? He was frantically attempting to rectify errors before anyone detected them. Those business trips? Complete fiction. I was still processing all this when my phone rang. It was Tina, Ryan's mother. I almost didn't answer. Awkward. But I figured I should behave maturely. Tina has always been exceptionally kind to me, like remembering my birthday and genuinely inquiring about my life. That sort of kindness. She sounded apprehensive and inquired if everything was all right between Ryan and me. Apparently, he informed his family we had a minor disagreement, but everything was fine. A minor disagreement? The man publicly mortified me, ended our relationship in front of his associates, and saddled me with a substantial bill. I attempted to remain vague, stating we were taking some space because I didn't wish to involve her. Then she mentioned Ryan's birthday dinner on Saturday and how the entire family was anticipating seeing me there. You guys, I nearly choked on my lo mein. Ryan had informed his family we were still together and that I was attending his birthday dinner. The dinner was at his parents' residence, and apparently he told them we had significant news to share. After hanging up, I sat there in disbelief while Vanessa gazed at me as if I'd sprouted a second head. She said, "Is he delusional or simply a pathological liar?" Honestly, I was pondering the same question. That's when we devised the plan. I wasn't going to simply abandon his family. They'd always been gracious to me, and they deserved to know the type of person Ryan truly was. But I also wasn't going to create a scene or be vengeful. I would simply attend the dinner as invited and allow the truth to emerge organically. The following day, Cody met me for coffee. Slightly awkward since we'd only met through Ryan, but he proved to be quite relaxed. He corroborated everything and added even more specifics about Ryan's workplace deceptions. The team Ryan claimed to be leading was actually just him and 2 interns. The significant presentation he was in charge of last month? He was merely operating the slideshow while his supervisor presented. Cody appeared genuinely distressed on my behalf, stating he'd always found Ryan's narratives about me peculiar. Apparently, Ryan would arrive at work complaining that I was high maintenance, when in reality, I was covering the majority of our dates toward the end because Ryan claimed to be between paychecks, which I now recognized probably meant he was financially irresponsible. Midway through our conversation, Cody received a text from their supervisor inquiring if he could come in Saturday evening to assist with some emergency project. Cody was disappointed because he'd had plans, but then I had an idea. What if Cody needed to drop something off at Ryan's parents' house during the birthday dinner? The timing would be impeccable. As we were finalizing the details, my phone vibrated with a text from Ryan, the first one since the restaurant debacle. It simply stated, "We need to discuss what transpired. I might have overreacted." Might have? I showed Cody, and he nearly spat out his coffee. Overreacted is when you become irritated about someone's tardiness, not when you publicly humiliate your girlfriend of 2 years and burden her with a $300 bill. I didn't respond. Let him stew. The subsequent 2 days were a whirlwind of preparation. I wasn't attending this dinner ill-prepared. I delved through old texts, uncovering all the falsehoods. Dates when he claimed to be at work, conferences that didn't exist, anecdotes about colleagues that Cody confirmed were fabricated, even photographs Ryan had posted of himself at work functions that were actually downloaded from the company website. Friday night, Vanessa came over to assist me in selecting an outfit. I won't lie, a part of me desired to appear stunning just to spite him, but we decided the optimal approach was to look presentable but not like I was making an excessive effort. We settled on a simple black dress that Ryan once stated made me appear average, which I now realize was his peculiar negging attempt, because I received compliments whenever I wore it. I barely slept Friday night. What if this backfired? What if his family sided with him? What if I froze and couldn't proceed? By Saturday morning, I had chewed my nails down to nothing and mentally rehearsed approximately 17 different scenarios. Around noon, Ryan texted again. "Anticipating seeing you tonight. Wear something appealing. My parents are enthusiastic." I didn't respond to that either. Let him speculate whatever he wished. I spent the afternoon getting ready, experiencing a peculiar blend of apprehension and anticipation. Vanessa assisted me with my hair and provided a pep talk when I began to lose my nerve. At 5:30, I got in my car and headed to his parents' house. I had to pull over once because my hands were trembling too much to drive safely. I sat there for a minute, performing those breathing exercises from that meditation app I downloaded months ago but never actually utilized. What was I doing? Was this insane? Perhaps I should simply block Ryan on everything and move on with my life like a normal individual. But then I envisioned him seated there at his birthday dinner, likely recounting some fabricated version of our relationship, perhaps even portraying himself as the victim, and my resolve solidified. I pulled up to his parents' house at 6:15, fashionably late, which I knew would irritate Ryan. There were several vehicles already in the driveway. It appeared the entire family was present. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror, inhaled deeply one last time, and approached the door. Ryan's father opened it with a broad smile and an embrace, ushering me inside. The house smelled of Tina's renowned pot roast, and for a moment, I experienced a twinge of melancholy. I genuinely liked Ryan's family, and this would likely be the final time I'd see them. I rounded the corner into the living room, and there was Ryan, beverage in hand, mid-laugh at something his cousin uttered. He froze when he saw me, clearly not anticipating me to actually appear, despite what he'd informed his family. The expression on his face was, well, priceless, TBH. For a fleeting second, panic flickered across his features before he regained his composure and approached with this insincere smile. He gave me a perfunctory hug and whispered, "You actually came. We need to converse privately." I simply smiled and stated, audibly enough for everyone to hear, that I wouldn't miss his birthday for anything, particularly since he'd been informing everyone we had significant news to share. The color drained from his face. Tina clapped her hands excitedly and inquired if this was what she suspected. Ryan's sister gave me a knowing glance. His father began joking about finally becoming grandparents. Ryan gripped my elbow a bit too tightly and attempted to steer me toward the hallway, but his mother announced that dinner was prepared and everyone needed to be seated. As we all took our places around the dining table, with Ryan nervously observing my every movement, my phone vibrated with a text from Cody. En route, 15 minutes away. Ryan leaned over and hissed. What are you doing here? I thought after the restaurant. I just smiled sweetly and said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family about what happened at that restaurant, Ryan. I'm sure they'd love to hear that story. The look of absolute panic on his face as his mom started bringing out the food was worth every second of anxiety it took to get there. Game on. Second update. I'm finally prepared to divulge what transpired at Ryan's birthday dinner. I apologize for the delay. I required a mental health day following all this melodrama. Plus, my Wi-Fi has been malfunctioning because my neighbor borrowed my password and apparently downloaded the entirety of the internet. Where were we? Ah, yes, me seated at the dinner table with Ryan's family while he panicked about what I might utter. So there I was, encompassed by Ryan's family, his parents, Tina and Ralph, his sister, Kayla, his grandmother, and two cousins whose names I invariably confuse. The table was laden with Tina's renowned pot roast, those creamy mashed potatoes I've literally fantasized about, and an elaborate salad that no one would consume, but everyone would feign appreciation for. The initial 20 minutes were profoundly awkward. Ryan kept attempting to dominate the conversation while casting me these cautionary glances. I simply smiled and passed the bread rolls, relishing the manner in which his left eye twitched each time I opened my mouth. Petty? Perhaps. Gratifying? Absolutely. Tina maintained the conversational flow, bless her. She inquired about my family, my occupation, the customary small talk. When she mentioned how proud they all were of Ryan's significant promotion, I nearly choked on my water. I glanced at Ryan, whose face had assumed the precise hue of the beets on the table. Ryan interjected, elaborating on how his team was exceeding their objectives and how his supervisor was practically grooming him for senior management. I simply nodded in agreement, observing him entrench himself further with each utterance. Ralph, who's always been the reticent one, unexpectedly inquired about the Johnson account. Apparently, Ryan had been informing his father about some colossal deal he was purportedly leading. Ryan's response was so nebulous, it could have been a horoscope, something about strategic pivots and leveraging core competencies that literally signified nothing. His sister, Kayla, caught my eye across the table. She's always been the skeptical member of the family, the type to verify facts online during disagreements and expose individuals' fabrications. She raised an eyebrow at me as if to say, "Is he serious right now?" That's when Tina broached the subject of the future. She inquired about our significant news and whether it pertained to us taking the next step. Ryan nearly dropped his fork and mumbled something about it not being the opportune moment to discuss it. His grandmother, who possesses zero filter and is my absolute favorite individual in his family, interjected with, "So, are you two cohabitating or what? Because Ryan indicated you were examining apartments together." Again, news to me. The furthest we'd progressed in that conversation was me once stating, "Perhaps we should consider merging our Netflix accounts to economize." Ryan attempted to redirect the conversation back to himself, elaborating on how his supervisor had presented him with a company card for business expenditures. I couldn't resist. I inquired what type of expenditures he was authorized to approve. He stammered something about client dinners and team outings. That's when I nonchalantly mentioned, "Oh, speaking of dinners, Ryan took me to this incredible restaurant last week. What was it called again, honey? The one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo?" The color drained from his face more rapidly than my phone battery on TikTok. Seriously, my phone cannot endure more than 20 minutes of scrolling before expiring. Anyone else? Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Impeccable timing. Tina went to answer it, and I overheard her delighted, "Oh, Cody, what a pleasant surprise!" Ryan appeared as if he might actually faint. Cody entered with a folder, all professional in his button-down shirt. He apologized for interrupting the birthday dinner, but stated he had some work documents Ryan needed to sign urgently for Monday morning. Tina, being the quintessential hostess, promptly invited him to join us for cake later. Ryan attempted to usher Cody toward the front door, but Ralph insisted they could manage work matters right there at the table, since we're all family here. Cody sat down in the vacant chair beside me, which I'd strategically reserved. NGL, Ryan was gripping his fork so intensely I believed it might bend. That's when Ralph inquired about the significant presentation, the one Ryan had apparently been leading. Cody appeared perplexed for a moment before comprehending. He glanced at me, then at Ryan, and I could discern him making a decision. Cody stated the presentation proceeded well, but clarified that their supervisor had delivered it, with Ryan and the team providing assistance. Ralph appeared bewildered and stated that wasn't how Ryan had depicted it. I interjected, because I'm mischievous like that, and inquired about Ryan's promotion. Poor Cody appeared so uncomfortable, caught between allegiance to a colleague and not wishing to deceive an entire family. He fidgeted with his napkin and uttered something vague about company restructuring. Ryan interrupted with this feigned laugh and attempted to alter the subject to sports or something, but his sister wasn't acquiescing. She inquired point blank what Ryan's current title was. The silence that ensued was akin to that moment when you drop something in a public restroom. Everyone hears it. No one wishes to acknowledge it. Cody gazed at Ryan, who was silently imploring with his eyes, then at me. I nodded subtly. He cleared his throat and stated that Ryan was an administrative assistant in the marketing department. The silence. Ralph placed his fork down deliberately. His grandmother emitted this faint huh sound. Kayla muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "I suspected as much." Ryan immediately entered damage control mode, asserting Cody was mistaken, that he had multiple roles, that it was intricate, but the dam had ruptured. His family began posing specific questions that he couldn't evade. When did you receive a promotion? He hadn't. Why did you claim you had a team? He didn't. What about that corner office you referenced? Also fictitious. With each inquiry, Ryan's narratives unraveled further. He kept gazing at me as if this were somehow my fault, which intensified my determination to allow everything to surface. Tina, bless her heart, attempted to alleviate the tension. She suggested we all partake in some cake and discuss more cheerful topics. As she went to the kitchen to retrieve it, Kayla inquired directly about the restaurant I'd mentioned earlier. This was my moment. I inhaled deeply and recounted everything. How Ryan had invited me to meet his associates, how he'd belittled me throughout dinner, how he'd terminated our relationship in front of everyone and departed, leaving me with a $347 invoice I could scarcely afford. Ryan attempted to interrupt multiple times, but his father silenced him with an expression I'd never witnessed previously: profound disappointment. Ryan's defense? That I was exaggerating and portraying myself as the victim, that I had mortified him in front of his colleagues by not integrating, that abandoning me with the bill was instructing me in financial responsibility. His grandmother actually snorted at that final assertion. Cody, who had remained silent throughout the majority of this, finally spoke up. He corroborated my account, adding that he'd overheard Ryan boasting to colleagues about how he'd put me in my place. He even retrieved his phone and displayed text messages from Pablo, receipts y'all, discussing what had transpired. Tina returned with the cake just as Ryan was attempting to depict himself as the aggrieved party. She set it down and inquired what she'd missed. No one spoke for a moment. Then Ryan's father stated, very quietly, that they needed to have a family discussion about integrity. Ryan erupted, like a full-blown tantrum. He accused me of alienating his family, labeled Cody a traitor, and asserted everyone was simply envious of his success. What success? He overturned his water glass, gestured at me, and bellowed that a person like me should be thankful he even bothered with me. His mother gasped. His grandmother uttered something that I'm fairly certain was elderly person profanity. His sister simply shook her head, as if she wasn't even astonished. I remained composed somehow, and stated that the sole thing I was grateful for was finally perceiving who he truly was. Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so forcefully that one of Tina's decorative plates dislodged from the wall and shattered. The aftermath was peculiarly tranquil. Tina apologized to me approximately 50 times. Ralph appeared weary and despondent. Kayla assisted in cleaning up the spilled water. Cody apologized for his involvement in the awkwardness, but stated he couldn't remain silent while Ryan deceived everyone. Then the most peculiar thing occurred. Instead of requesting me to depart, they insisted I remain for cake. We all sat there, Ryan's ex-girlfriend, his colleague, and his family, consuming birthday cake without the birthday celebrant. In any other circumstance, it would have been the most uncomfortable situation imaginable, but somehow, it wasn't. After cake, I assisted Tina with the cleanup in the kitchen. She kept apologizing and asserting she had no inkling Ryan had been deceiving everyone about so much. She appeared genuinely heartbroken, not merely about what he'd perpetrated against me, but about the person her son had become. I felt empathy for her, TBH. No parent wishes to realize their child is, well, somewhat appalling. She inquired quietly if there had been indications previously, and I conceded that, in retrospect, there were red flags I disregarded because I desired to believe the best about him. When I was preparing to depart, Ryan's father drew me aside. He expressed gratitude for my candor and apologized for his son's actions. He appeared so defeated, as if he were attempting to ascertain where they'd erred in raising him. I reassured him it wasn't their fault. Ryan had made his own decisions. Cody offered to escort me to my car, likely sensing I needed a moment to process everything. As we traversed the driveway, he mentioned that Ryan had been experiencing difficulties at work for months, claiming credit for others' concepts, deceiving others about his contributions, even fabricating emails from clients. He was actually on his final warning prior to potential termination. Suddenly, Ryan's desperate need to appear triumphant made a perverse kind of sense. His entire identity was predicated on this fabricated image of achievement and status. When I contemplated it in that manner, I almost felt compassion for him. Almost. I expressed gratitude to Cody for supporting me and drove home in a peculiar state of emotional exhaustion commingled with relief, akin to when you finally remove an uncomfortable bra at the conclusion of the day. Sorry for the peculiar analogy, but y'all comprehend my meaning. When I arrived home, I had 3 missed calls from Vanessa, desiring updates. I was about to contact her when my phone vibrated with a text from Ryan. "You've ruined everything. This isn't over." I didn't respond, simply blocked his number and prepared myself some tea. I should have been apprehensive or distressed, but honestly, I merely felt fatigued and perhaps a trifle proud of myself for confronting him. I believed that was the culmination of it. I genuinely did. But this morning, my phone was inundated with 13 missed calls from Ryan's mother, his sister Cody, and several unfamiliar numbers. Something had transpired overnight, and based on the increasingly frantic voicemails, Ryan had completely lost control. Last update, I'm finally prepared to elucidate those 13 missed calls. I appreciate your patience while I processed everything that occurred. Additionally, I apologize for the delay. My laptop decided to perform a surprise 4-hour update precisely when I sat down to compose this. So, where were we? I awoke Sunday morning, following the birthday dinner debacle, to discover my phone inundated with calls from Ryan's family and Cody. Initially, I legitimately believed someone had perished or something. My stomach experienced that dreadful plummeting sensation as I scrolled through the notifications. 5 missed calls from Tina, 3 from Kayla, 2 from Cody, and 3 from unfamiliar numbers. I contacted Tina first, as she appeared the most apprehensive based on her voicemails, which were merely variations of, "Sabrina, please contact me as soon as feasible." She answered on the first ring, sounding depleted. Apparently, after Ryan stormed out of the birthday dinner, he'd embarked on a complete rampage. He'd appeared at his ex-girlfriend's apartment at approximately 2:00 a.m., inebriated and ranting about how I'd ruined his life. The ex-girlfriend, whom I didn't even know existed, TBH, was understandably perturbed and contacted Kayla, who had to retrieve him. But that wasn't all. Ryan had also spent the night dispatching unhinged messages to virtually everyone we knew. He texted Cody, threatening to ruin him at work. LOL. Good luck with that when you're on the verge of termination. He'd posted this lengthy, rambling status on Facebook about how he was surrounded by vipers and people would rue betraying him. Most concerning was that he'd posted my address in a private message to his friend Pablo, asserting he was going to make me pay for mortifying him. Pablo, who apparently possesses some moral compass, promptly contacted Tina and forwarded the message, which is why she was endeavoring so desperately to reach me. I was seated on my sofa in my dilapidated old pajamas, hair still in yesterday's disheveled bun, attempting to process all this information while Tina apologized approximately 50 times for her son's conduct. I should have been frightened, I suppose, but honestly, I merely felt weary, akin to when your phone is stuck at 1% battery for hours, simply awaiting it to finally expire so you can recharge it and proceed. Tina insisted on coming over, simply to ensure I was all right, which was incredibly kind, but also induced me to panic clean my apartment. Nothing motivates tidying up like knowing someone's mother is about to view your living space, am I correct? I was literally thrusting soiled laundry into my closet and scrubbing desiccated toothpaste off the bathroom sink when my doorbell rang. It wasn't merely Tina. Kayla was with her too. They brought coffee and those diminutive pastries from the bakery near their residence, which, I won't lie, might be what I miss most about being with Ryan. We sat at my minuscule kitchen table, with the wobbly leg that I've been intending to repair for months, and they filled me in on the Ryan situation. According to Kayla, this wasn't the first instance of Ryan deceiving others about his life. In college, he'd apparently informed everyone he was on the baseball team when he'd actually been cut during tryouts. He'd once claimed to be communicating with a popular girl who had no inkling of his existence. There was an entire pattern of him fabricating this fictional iteration of himself that was more accomplished, more popular, more everything. As they were conversing, my phone kept vibrating with texts from friends who'd witnessed Ryan's social media meltdown. Vanessa was panicking, desiring to come over with her boyfriend, who practices kickboxing, just in case. She watches far too many crime programs, I swear. My group chat was exploding with perplexed messages regarding the melodramatic subtweets Ryan was posting. That's when my doorbell rang again. I literally froze, momentarily wondering if it was Ryan. Kayla peered through the blinds and exhaled a prolonged breath. It was Cody. Apparently, Ryan had been inundating his phone all morning too, and Cody desired to caution me in person, since Ryan had mentioned paying me a visit. So, there we all were. Me, Ryan's mother, his sister, and his colleague, seated in my living room on a Sunday morning, attempting to determine what to do about this man-child throwing a tantrum because he was exposed in his deceptions. If it weren't so nerve-wracking, it would have been comical. Like, imagine elucidating this circumstance to someone who wasn't present. Cody mentioned that their supervisor had already become aware of Ryan's social media tirade. Someone had screenshotted and forwarded it. So Monday at work was going to be intriguing. Kayla was apprehensive Ryan might do something imprudent if he lost his occupation on top of everything else. That's when my doorbell rang again. This time, it was the building manager, appearing exceedingly awkward. Apparently, Ryan had been downstairs, creating a disturbance in the lobby, demanding to be permitted up to my apartment. The manager had refused, bless him, and threatened to summon the police, at which point Ryan had stormed off, but not before bellowing that I was a liar, sufficiently audibly for the entire first floor to overhear. Tina appeared devastated. She kept apologizing and asserting she had no notion where they'd erred in raising him. I felt profound empathy for her. Imagine realizing your adult son is essentially a ambulatory red flag. Kayla was more pragmatic, suggesting I document everything, just in case Ryan's conduct escalated. We were all seated there, attempting to ascertain what to do, when my phone vibrated with a notification. Ryan had tagged me in an Instagram story. Against my better judgment, and everyone in the room imploring me not to examine it, I opened it. It was a photograph of me from early in our relationship, slumbering on his sofa with my mouth agape, captioned, "Miss Perfect who ruined my birthday isn't so perfect. A girl like you should be grateful anyone took pictures of you at all." Like, that was his grand vengeance? A marginally unflattering photograph from 2 years prior. I actually chuckled aloud, which wasn't the response Tina was anticipating, but honestly, if that was the worst he could do, I was going to be all right. Just as we were deliberating next steps, There was a vociferous pounding on my door. We all jumped. Then we heard Ryan's voice, slurring slightly. "I know you're in there. Open the door." Cody promptly rose as if he were going to confront Ryan, which was endearing but superfluous. I was already summoning the building's security guard, perks of a slightly more upscale apartment building. Ryan persisted in pounding and bellowing, and I could hear my neighbor's door open as she emerged to investigate the commotion. By the time security arrived, Ryan had progressed to kicking the door. The security guard didn't dawdle. He instructed Ryan to depart, or he'd summon the police. There was some back and forth that I couldn't entirely discern, then silence. The guard knocked softly and informed me Ryan had departed the building but was still in the parking area, possibly awaiting. Tina was mortified. She insisted on descending to address her son herself, and honestly, I was content to permit her. She was so distraught that Ralph, Ryan's father, had to come retrieve them both. The entire circumstance was simply melancholy. After they departed, Cody and I sat on my sofa in stunned silence for a duration. He ultimately broke it by inquiring if I possessed any alcohol, which felt like the commensurate response to the morning we'd had. We split a bottle of wine I'd been reserving for a special occasion, and this definitively qualified. By the time Cody departed, it was late afternoon, and I was emotionally depleted. Vanessa came over and spent the night, just in case Ryan decided to stage a return appearance. He didn't, thankfully. We ordered pizza, watched subpar reality television, and attempted to process the utter soap opera my life had become. The ensuing weeks were, well, an adjustment. Ryan was terminated from his employment after failing to appear for 3 days and dispatching inappropriate emails to several colleagues. He relocated back in with his parents temporarily, which I only know because Kayla and I have maintained contact. She's actually quite cool. We occasionally meet for coffee. Ryan attempted to contact me a few more times, leaving voicemails that ranged from irate to lachrymose to oddly nostalgic. I archived them all, just in case, but never responded. He created a few fictitious Instagram accounts to message me, but they were so patently him. Who else would write, "You're making a big mistake" with that spelling error? That I simply blocked them instantly. The most peculiar part was encountering him at Target approximately a month later. I was in the home goods section, perusing shower curtains, and suddenly, there he was, clutching a package of socks and appearing as if he hadn't slept in days. We made eye contact, and for a moment I anticipated he might create a scene. Instead, he simply turned and walked away, abandoning his shopping basket right there in the aisle. That was 3 months ago. Now Ryan eventually relocated to his uncle's residence in another state, according to Tina, who still sends me holiday cards, which is endearing but awkward. His social media has become suspiciously quiescent. Kayla believes his parents finally curtailed his financial support until he undergoes therapy. As for me, I'm doing rather well, actually. My apartment finally feels like mine again, now that I've rearranged the furnishings and replaced the items that reminded me of Ryan. The most peculiar outcome of all this might be my unanticipated friendship with Cody. We're not romantically involved or anything, though Vanessa keeps attempting to orchestrate that. But we occasionally have lunch and exchange texts about inane TikTok videos. It's pleasant having someone who witnessed the entire Ryan saga and comprehends why I now possess trust issues the size of Texas. Reflecting on everything, I'm no longer irate. Well, not solely irate. I'm also strangely appreciative. Not for dating Ryan, definitively not that, but for discovering who he truly was before matters progressed further. Imagine if I'd cohabitated with him or something. Shudder. This whole experience has been a bizarre, exhausting, and ultimately empowering lesson. It's taught me to trust my instincts, to value genuine connections, and, perhaps most importantly, to always get separate checks on a first date. And maybe invest in a really good lock for my door. Just in case. The end.